the boxes, it looks like it's checked. You guys ready to contend?
For sure, man. I think it just comes with our calmness, our composure, our competitiveness, the grit that we have, the coaches that put us in the right positions, calling the right play calls, the playmakers that we have. I think it just speaks volume of what George and Coach Payton, both of them decided in the drafts over the last couple of years and signed the players that we've had and believing in people like me and Cortland and those type of guys that have been here for a while, and then bringing in new pieces to make our team dangerous. And, I'll put our team up against anybody in the league, and, we just got to focus on getting better every single day and focus on the important things. And then when it's time to rock and roll, we'll rock and roll.
Garett, how different have things been for you personally? Not that you were really worried about your contract, but knowing that a new one might be coming and that's been done and not have to really think about it, maybe again.
Well, hopefully I can do one more. That's my goal. We can talk about that later, but I'm just grateful to be here, man. This organization has given me everything. The state has given me everything. The fan base, the love I have for all my teammates, and being the old guy, it feels weird. I remember, a couple years ago when I was talking to Vaughn, and we discussed about me being here a long time, and now it just feels so weird, being that guy. But I'm just super grateful. I have amazing coaching staff that believed in me, and that's all it takes. Once you believe in me, I'll run through a wall for you. So I'm glad to be here. I don't think too much about the future or anything like that. I just focus in the now and what that's going to bring to me, and just get ready to protect Bo as much as I can.
How does your role change as the old guy?
I don't know if it changes much. I just love everyone anymore. Everyone asks me a bunch of questions all the time, but I'm just there for everybody. I don't want to call myself old. I still got more years to go, but I guess I'm old in age, but not in football years. And I got a young body that can just continue to go. And I'm like a Chevy. It doesn't break down like a Ford does. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say that, but that's okay.
It cost you an endorsement.
Hey, it's all right. I'm just being honest. I drive a Chevy. I can't complain. It don't break down.
Yeah. It sounds like that might be an endorsement. What's some of the greatest wisdom you've gained?
I think the game has slowed down for me, and it's just, I got to stay on my A game every single day. There's new guys coming to this league that are freaks of natures. You got Myles Garrett, you got Max Crosby, you got all those guys that are just freaks. And I love going against the best of the best. It pushes me to be my best, and I think just being calm and watching film and working on my little things and just being disciplined and the way I sleep, the way I train, the way I take care of my body. I think I'm available every single day, and I want to make sure my coaches understand that and know that, and so they put me in the best position to make sure that I'm ready to go every single day.
One of those guys who's come into the league in the last few years, Nick Benito, you go against him. What makes him so special from what you've seen of him going against him every day in practice?
I mean, the dude has what it takes to be great. I pull him and Coop aside all the time, and I say, you guys can be the best in the league. They got high motor. He doesn't give up. It's a special talent to be able to time up a snap count and be able to jump it. It scares tackles, and I get to go up against that every single day. So it's a great battle for me and puts me on my A game every single day. But just what he does day in and day out, he never quits. He's so smooth with it. He can bend, he can rip, he has power. And it's just really cool to see him grow up and become something that, where tackles fear and teams have to prepare for him. And, I'm proud of him and I love him dearly, and I think the sky's the limit for him.
You've always played with great passion. As you've matured, have you been able to focus that passion more? Does that make sense?
I think in my passion at a young age is I just wanted to put everyone in the dirt all the time. Now I think it's more sexy to stay in front of somebody and block them with your feet and hands. And, that's just the reality is you want to be the best tackle in the league. You talk about some of the greats, that's what they did. They stayed in front of the guy, they moved their feet, and they played a long time. And, But I really also think it just comes to taking care of your body and knowing, what you're going to put in. You're not going to put bad gas in a Ferrari or a Lambo. You're going to put in, the best gas, 91, 95 octane, and that's just what it takes. When you get older, you gotta focus on the little things, and that's eating right, that's sleeping right, that's training, and just getting, discipline in everything you do. The game's the same, and the speed's the same. I'm more confident in that. But when it just comes to taking care of your body and making sure you're doing everything right with your modalities, which we do a really good job here, I can play as long as I can.
Garett, what steps have you seen from Bo take from year 1 to year 2 on or off the field?
Listen, he came in the league ready to rock and roll. You've all seen it. I mean, I don't have to say much about that. I mean, the dude is a freak, and he's so composed and he's so calm, and he's just a smart dude, and he knows exactly where the ball's going to go. He can read defenses. He's calm. He's composed in the huddle. Like, when you think a rookie comes in and leads a team, sometimes they get the jitters and sometimes they get nervous, but that dude never had that, and I think it just speaks volume of how many offensive snaps he took in college, and coming in here and just being a leader and who he is. He's the type of person that knows what he believes and what he stands up to believe in, and he's never going to go away from that. And I think that's what separates him from everybody else, is who he is as a person, and the demeanor and the work ethic he has is what separates him.
Garett, Sean Payton talked a minute ago about one of the keys for this year's stringing wins together. Had a 4-game win streak last year, 5 the year before that. What have you learned about what that takes, and maybe do you guys feel more comfortable in being able to string those wins together during a season instead of kind of win 2, lose 1?
I mean, I think we made the playoffs for a reason because of the games that we did win, and the win streaks that we did have. Ever since Coach Spain's been here, we've gone on. The first year we went on a 6-game win streak. Last year we went on a 4 or 5-game win streak. Who knows what we can do this year? I think we just got to stay calm and composed and just focus on the game and attack each opponent the same way. The way we study, the way that we game plan, the way that we do things. Like, we have a hell of a coaching staff here. We really do. One of the best in the NFL for a reason. And, Coach Payton, I love him dearly. I'm just super proud of him that he chose us to be here. He could have gone anywhere else, but he chose to be a Denver Bronco, and, just his coaching experience, his mindset, his culture that he builds is so special. He works the hell out of us, that's for sure. But I think when we get in those moments when it's crunch time and you got to score, you got to make a stop. I don't think we're afraid, because he puts us in situations in practice to make us feel uncomfortable. So that when we get in those moments, we can win those close games. Where a couple years ago we weren't winning those close games. We were losing by 3, 4, 5, 7 points, and those are the games you have to win in this league. And the mistakes that we used to make and the mistakes that we don't make right now is the difference. And I think it's just all about the culture we have here and the players we have here and the mindset that we have here.